Kyra here.
Hi.
We're going to talk about intuitive feelers and sensor thinkers, and how, as an intuitive feeler, that you can have a better life experience. I think that's where we're going with this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Sure, yeah.
All right. Awesome. So Todd knows a lot about Meyers Briggs Typology, and so I don't know as much. I know enough to kind of make it through my day, but I don't know what he knows. So I wanted to just take a moment and access your information.
Happy to help however I can.
All right, so some of the questions that I have and have had around this is, why do I feel so different from everybody else?
Well, the answer to that, Kyra, is because you are different from everybody else. Well, you're an INFJ like me, and intuitive feelers, or NFs, they only make up about 25% of the population. And just to clarify for people who don't know anything about MBTI, whatever your type is doesn't mean that if I'm an INFJ, it doesn't mean that I don't think about things. We're all of us are all 8 types. We all have a balance of extroverted and introverted. Most internet tests, free tests online, are basically going to spit out your 4 letters. They're not going to get too far into the details of how much you're this or that. Suffice it to say that whatever your type is not who you are as a person. It's just a map of the territory. And, and no type is better than any other type. It takes all types to make the world go round. We're all in it together. So there's no one type better than the other. It's just that they use different cognitive functions and have a different set of strengths and weaknesses and that kind of thing.
That is so. It's so good that you mentioned that, because I think that there is a tendency for me to want people, who are in the majority, who are sensor thinkers, or a variation of them, to understand me, or depending upon the level of my development, I might want them to be more like me. I know for a certain point in my life, I thought everyone thought like me.
Yeah. I learned that.
Even though I had plenty of evidence to the contrary there, I still thought, why don't they see it the way I see it? Because that's the scope of my awareness.
Right.
And I'm not growing outside of that. So once I realized, oh, wait a minute, not everybody thinks like I do, it helped open me up to new possibilities. But I think that's interesting, because when you talked about the percentages of the different types, and I'm an INFJ and you're an INFJ, and we don't agree on absolutely everything, and not all of his strengths or my strengths and my weaknesses or his weaknesses. We have a good combination of the two. So his percentages might be a little bit higher in one area, but fundamentally, our value systems match up. And we will go based, like you said, on your gut. Pitfalls of intuitive feelers. What are some of the things that we run into along the way?
Well, the first thing that comes up, just because I mentioned this recently to a friend, was if you're going into business, you don't want all the same personality types on one team. Otherwise, you're all going to be weighted on one end, but the other end of the business is, you want a balanced team. You don't want all power hitters on your team and nobody who can field the ball. So you want someone like an ISTJ managing the books and doing the bookkeeping and taking care of the appointments and things. You want somebody like an ESFJ or an ISFJ manning the desk, who is really good with face-to-face interaction and likes a traditional type of approach to working. You want your INFJs being counselors and coaches and things like that. There's other. These are just examples, and there's no one personality type that should be doing one thing. But there are there are
strengths.
there are
strengths.
Yeah, there are strengths. You do want to leverage people's strengths, and I think that's what any business would try to do upon interviewing, and people who are interviewing for jobs, are going into a certain industry is hopefully based upon your own strengths, even if you know nothing about MBTI.
Yeah, that's big, because that's why corporations have people do personality tests, because they want to not categorize them and limit them, but they want to make sure that they're being put in the right place. And I think that's one of the smart things that corporations do with their people, is because otherwise, if I was in a position where I had to be very analytical, very detail oriented, very, and it was all my job, quality assurance would not be a good job for me.
Right.
I'm much better at connecting, counseling,
managing the needs of the tribe.
That's
very much an NF thing.
Yeah, that would be. I'm good at conflict resolution. Connecting with people so that they feel safer. That's a better position for me. But and then too, when we get into, if I get into too much accuracy, I can get really bogged down and in a lot of pain emotionally.
Right.
So.
It's not a strong point. It can be done, but since it's not one of our primary cognitive functions, but it is in our stack. It's something that we gotta work at to make sure we're crossing T's and dotting I's and things like that, because it's not a strength. It's at the development of like a 10-year-old. But you can develop your weaknesses, and knowing what they are, and knowing what your primary cognitive functions are, which you're going to have those 4, right? Are, as opposed to not knowing, is really going to help you in life. And then you have at least a baseline of knowing how you think, how you operate, and what some of your strengths and shortcomings might be. You probably already have a sense, but good Lord, learning MBTI was so much easier for me, and so much easier for me to help people make sense of themselves if they had nothing to go on. If I knew their type, especially when we were coaching and doing emotionally transformative work with people, knowing their type helped us to understand how they think instantly.
Yep.
And they're like, this is magic.
How do you know me? How do you know me so well?
You know me already, and they didn't have to divulge so much information in order for us to understand.
Like deep, dark night of the soul stuff. They just, I'm like, oh,
right.
Well,
we didn't have to. Yeah, they didn't have to relate to us through all of their experiences for us to say, oh, I understand is this how you think about this? And yes, it is. Oh my gosh.
You're mind reading me.
Another really concrete example for like strengths, weaknesses. NFs will get this, and if any STs are watching this, or NTs, they will definitely see this as a valid point. So one of my close friends, another INFJ buddy, is really familiar with the corporate traditional kind of a job market, and what books have been written about this. I can't think of the one I'm thinking of off the top of my head, but I know books have been written about this kind of thing. It's kind of a phenomenon. And that is, you'll find in like traditional corporate America that personality types that are sensor thinker, like ISTJs, and they're just bomb awesome administrative types of people, very dutiful, very let's go from here to there and get it done kind of thing. They rise up through the ranks pretty quickly. In most, especially most thinker positions, where systems need to be kind of managed and administrated and operated. So they tend to advance pretty quickly as do like personality types. But what happens is they get into these management positions, they get promoted, and then all of a sudden they're responsible for hiring, and on the whole, they have a harder time evaluating, not resumes and things like that, but understanding what types of personality types need to be hired in certain positions, because they're, by and large, they're not people. They're procedure people. They are keeping track of things types of people. So there have been books written on this because it's been I forgot the term. There's an actual phrase for this, where you get promoted. You get promoted to the point to where you have a whole new set of responsibilities, but the things that got you successful, which is very much tied to your personality type, all of a sudden you have a new set of responsibilities and a new job description, and they want you to be in charge and handle things, and all of a sudden people are like, I don't know, I don't even know how to hire people, I don't know what to look for, and
you get promoted outside of your range in
right.
a way, and even though you deserve the pay raise, you deserve the promotion,
right.
You're getting promoted into a different personality type.
It's
a different personality types responsibilities.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like okay, you've been doing the bookkeeping.
Right.
As an ISTJ or a ISTJ, and then suddenly they're like, well, you're doing great. Why don't you manage the entire accounting team
of ISTJs
and it's like,
and whatever? Yeah.
No.
now,
Bad.
yeah, like now some ISTJs could pull it off, I'm sure, and learn what they need to learn. These are generalizations. We're not trying to pin anybody to the wall.
No, but if you put an ISTJ above an INFJ, depending upon the situation, although I've had amazing supervisors at ISTJs, they're not necessarily going to be able to relate to your problem of your need to help the tribe.
Yep.
So like if you're like, well, yeah, but I have to go home for this particular thing. I'm making things up, but like I have to take care of this, or I have to take care of these issues with the tribe, and I need to emotionally support these particular people. That ISTJ is going to look at you and go, so you have a 9-to-5 responsibility, and maybe you can take a sick day.
It's always going to be about your duties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're going to feel unseen, but the truth is that they're just following the parameters of their understanding.
Like I wouldn't expect most ISTJs to be, I would not expect them to be counselors or social workers or anything like that. If they are, like in a psychology field, for example, it would be a very traditional approach to psychology with metrics and vetted, just very culturally vetted ways of approaching things, kind of thing.
Yes, sweeping generalizations, we know that.
These are very sweeping generalizations. We're painting broad strokes to just help create a broad understanding.
Yes.
We're not trying to create judgments about any one particular type. No,
but I will say this. If you get angry or you get mad or you get upset but with someone in your life, usually it's because of this disconnect in your personality type. It's a disconnect in a value system. It's a disconnect in strengths and weaknesses that are really outside of, if I'm an INFJ, he's an INFJ, we're going to have similar strengths and weaknesses, but some he's really, really great at, some I'm really, really not as good at.
Because your type doesn't define you. It's just a general map. There's other things that make us who we are. But
isn't it so nice though when you go, oh my gosh, they're an ISTJ, or oh my gosh, they're an ISFP, or oh my gosh, that makes so much sense now because I've been in conflict with this person, when really they're just being who they are.
They just think differently.
And they have different priorities, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I let a lot of people off the hook.
For sure.
That, and that lets me off the hook.
Yeah, I mean, it's the best thing to use MBTI for, in my opinion, or one of the best applications, is to find out how we can join together. Where are our similarities, and not so much judging out of ignorance. Ignorance breeds fear. MBTI helps to eliminate ignorance so that you can see one another and use your respective strengths to come to a place of joining. You're probably not going, an INFJ is probably not going to naturally resonate with an ISTJ or see eye to eye on things. That doesn't mean they don't inherently get along.
Yeah.
You can get along. It's just a matter of stepping outside yourself a little bit, knowing how you think, and knowing that you do think differently from other people, no matter what type you are, and catering. And everybody knows what it's like to have to develop social skills and make their way through life and whatnot. We do that by default. But having a little bit more of a roadmap can be helpful so long as you don't hold to it with too much rigidity.
Yeah, I think it's so cool when after you study this stuff a lot, you can kind of pull out, and it's, again, so INFJs, I know for me is that I will evaluate people to help myself feel safe, not to judge them or to pigeonhole them or to make them be the identity I want them to be. No. I'm looking at how can I love them better, and if I have a sense of general priorities of the different types, then I can look back and I can go, okay, how can I see them better? Because I can't love them until I see them, really. So I how can I see them better? Okay, so this is probably what they are around the area that they're in. I know they're an extrovert. That's going to be something for me to consider.
Tools for joining is what it is. Yeah. If it's just ignorance, then it's like you don't know what you don't know is what ignorance is. So, and if you don't have tools like these, then you might be more inclined to see someone as different from you and then judge them for being different from you, or think that they or take something personally because they're different from you, or you're not immediately clicking. Well, it's not about that. It's not about feeling instantly understood and safe. It's about seeking to understand.
Ooh,
that's how you create bridges with people who are different from you. I used to have judgment about personality types that were different from me.
Me too.
But I've largely overcome that, and I'm learning how to build bridges, and that's what an INFJ does anyway. They're very much about managing the needs of the tribe that they've chosen, that they've created, and bridging gaps to communication.
I think that's huge. I think that's one of the gifts that we give, and we're 1 or 2% of the population, INFJs. So it's very
the rarest
easy.
Type, yeah,
it's very easy for us to isolate and believe me, being 1 or 2% of the population is not as fun as it sounds.
No.
It's not like being the 2% of wealth like that.
Yeah.
There's lots of fun things that can happen with 1 to 2% of wealth.
1%. Being in the 1% is fun when it's the top 1% of a large amount of people, like 75%. Right. The top 1% of the most common types of the most 75% is like the equivalent of like a celebrity or a professional basketball player, professional athlete. They have those same functions that the majority of the population does, but they're the best at those functions.
Ooh,
we're 1%, but it's not 1% best of anything. It's the rarest. So that sounds cool, like she said, but really we're the least likely to be seen and understood. And now we've kind of transformed that into an asset, but it took there was many years of hard knocks to figure that out. I mean, you know it in your feelings, but you don't know why. You can't explain what that is or why that is until you're exposed to information like this that helps you to kind of put it into perspective why you were that way, and certainly not to cause you to judge yourself. If anything, it should help to release any kind of self-judgment or blame of self or other people and that kind of thing.
Yeah, because that's like the one of the hard. I mean, I remember growing up, and I'm just thinking to myself.
I know.
Like, oh my gosh, the feeling is just like if one person would have come to me and said, I understand you. But no, everything that I couldn't do was celebrated. And I'm like,
I know.
Everything that I'm like, God, because I wasn't the smartest tool. I mean, I wasn't the smartest tool in the shed.
You are?
I wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. I wasn't the person that had made honors. Well, I did later, but
I did later too.
Once I figured out how the system worked, then I could actually learn from the system. But until that point, I was in bad shape. I was F's, zeros, minuses. Yeah. I couldn't even do the homework. I was so destroyed over it, and I just could not figure it out. And actually, one of the programs that helped me a lot was where there's a will, there's an A. I don't know if you guys.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I learned column note taking, where you take the idea and then you fill out the other side of the column with the information about the idea you're learning. That helped me tremendously, and also recording my notes into my recorder and listening to them at night.
And both of those cater to your strength as an INFJ.
Yeah. And I could assimilate the information so much better. But that's what I mean. It's like, oh, everybody was celebrated but me.
Yeah.
And when your foundations of development are based on being not a cool outsider. We weren't the cool outsider. The cool outsiders. The cool outsiders had some kind of identity. I actually was listening to a program recently where a psychologist was talking about how basically intuitive feelers, the problem they have, and the one good thing is that we're creative. The one bad thing is we have a hard time with identity. So we have a hard time anchoring in who we fit into in this world, and we just don't.
Yeah.
So
you have to find your tribe kind of later, most of the time later in life, to where you have a little bit more self-understanding, and then you find these spiritual groups or this group or that group. Yeah, but early in life, when we don't really have a sense of identity yet, it's just a hodgepodge.
It's just anxiety, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of anxiety being the catch-all emotion for all of that confusion. Definitely was the case for me early in life. And and I was going to say something else.
Oh, God, and the misunderstanding. People thinking, oh, we're lazy. I mean, I know, oh, you're lazy, or you're not thinking hard enough, or you're not knuckling down, or and it's like,
the guy's an INFJ, so it's really easy to relate to women right away, because women are more so feeling based,
we generally want to help the tribe because we are an instrumental part of their survival, feeding, bathing, clothing.
INFJs do manage the tribe, as do women
in general.
So naturally, I was a hit with women.
The ladies.
which was never exploited. If anything, I was just the friend kind of thing, the guy who everyone trusted.
Yeah.
I can't even describe to you how many times I remember interacting with myself in the world up until let's say through high school. From age 0. From the time I could talk till like high school in particular, that's a good chunk of time where I remember so many times saying things or giving my 2 cents, or whenever I had a chance to say something, that people would just be quiet in response. I am not even kidding.
No, I'm the same way. I'm the same way. People would just be like
I would
what?
say something, and I had to figure it out through context clues that whatever I said that made them quiet, I'm like, are they mad at me? Did I say something wrong? Did I say something this or that or other thing? And I had to learn and put the pieces together by myself over the course of years to figure out, I don't think that way, and because I use NI, it's a very rare cognitive function.
Say what NI
is. NI is introverted intuition, which only like 2 or 3 types use of the 16 types. I want to say only 2 types use, but I know INTJ and INFJ do, and that might be it. There might be another one. But if you're rare like that, then anything I lead with in terms of saying this or that or the other thing, it was probably a broader perspective, not better, just a different perspective, and I think that maybe just caught people off guard. Maybe.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't in behavior or anything. Mm-hmm. It's just, if anything, I was like, I learned to not talk as much.
That's exactly what happened.
Because I'm used to just not being validated by or being understood. It's like, well, why create a scenario of being uncomfortable? It might be just easier to not say as much until I can, and then just find the people who do get me, mm-hmm. not knowing why, mind you, at that age, and then have those friendships and
that worked well. I think that was so much better in college and out of college, and then finding other elements of my life, a bit falling apart, but then coming back together once I really did find more people who were like me, more intuitive feelers that I just didn't think existed.
Right. And yeah, because we remember all these stories here. There's no knowledge of MBTI. It's just you feel different and you don't know why.
Yeah.
And as a kid, you just want love and acceptance. And I'm not saying that anything was lacking per se. No. I got plenty of love from my parents and friends and extended family. But still, throughout the course of these interactions, there were patterns, and and life showed me that more often than not, I really need to insert myself when I speak into what I know other people are going to get. And I just learned how to do that over time, mm-hmm. just to make things go more smoothly,
Right. But now, as we go into our later years,
now we've learned how to cultivate our uniqueness and the introverted intuition, which is using perspectives, which is what this video all is. You're hearing 2 INFJs talk about MBTI in the way that they deliver, which is introverted intuition, which is exploring different perspectives.
Yeah, so it's a bit meandering.
So that it is meandering, yeah. So, if you really like those brass tacks type of answers, you're probably not going to get them from an INFJ unless the INFJ knows your type, and if they do, they probably could figure it out, actually.
Yeah.
And when they do, then you'll find that they can communicate with you in a much more cohesive way.
And speak your language.
And speak your language.
That's
right.
The whole reason why learning MBTI has been so vital to me along the way, because if I know what your priorities are and the way that you will receive information, mm-hmm. then I can speak to you more fluidly. So if you have INFJ friends, I'm gonna say this to you, is that we might want to talk about something a lot. We might want to go into different. It's called going to perspectives, right? So we want to feel through every single element, and if we find someone who wants to go with us on that journey, we are going to enjoy it, and you're probably going to learn something from it too, because we do keep a lot of it inside, and we've formulated understandings, and we've researched, and we've assimilated, and we've done all these things. By the time it gets from here and here out to here, it has been fully vetted because of the fact that we're very rarely understood. So
right, and so we've vetted a lot of things for ourselves in our own head before bringing it out.
Yes, so that's such a good. So it's beneficial to allow us to kind of take this journey,
right,
because you will get a lot from it. Number one, and I'm not talking about me and Todd in this. I'm talking about any INFJ who really considers themselves. And then also we might, if we find someone who actually wants to listen to us, we're not going to let them go.
True.
We will not let them go.
That's just many
because
years of
they're so
conditioning.
rare.
Yeah, just many years of conditioning. Yeah, and to make a similar point using a contrasting approach, if you're more so just about, just get me from point A to point B kind of thing, just get me from here to that result, you're probably not going to be too much interested in hearing it from an INFJ, because we are not that kind of people. Yes, we have to get things done, and we.
And sometimes, if you say to us, "Just get me from point A to point B," we'll be able to do that too.
We can do that.
But you have to be clear, otherwise we're going on a fucking ride.
Right.
And it's going to be great.
Right. And it's really fun to, if you're just having casual conversation, and then as an INFJ, you're speaking in perspectives, and then you see them kind of light up. You can almost get a sense of what their personality type might be. Or the first thing I'll think is, oh, this might be a feeler, because they're lighting up. They're getting excited by it, And then of course there are also times when I've seen people just be completely flat no matter what I'm saying. And you don't need to understand MBTI or be familiar with it whatsoever to know that someone's not interested in what you're saying. But but if you do know MBTI, you could understand or start to get a sense that this person might have a very different personality type from you. So you might not, just to project this forward, you might not become friends with that person if you don't feel like you have a lot in common, because that's usually one of the things that, shared values definitely cements friendships. But, heck, that person could be very resourceful as a different personality type in terms of helping you to get different types of needs met or different types of things accomplished. Because people who are just like you, yes, they can be friends, but they might also only know of the same types of resources as you do. So having diversity in your relationships is very, very helpful, especially if you're going to do business. They say don't hire your friends. That's very wise advice. And so long as you know that how different personality types can strengthen your business if they're put into key positions.
That's massively huge. Yeah. So let's see. I feel like we've covered everything that I feel drawn to cover. Is there anything that you want to wrap up with?
My buddy I referred to earlier was even thinking about starting a business or a little agency, because he had done so many interviews where he sees where he's as an INFJ, he's analyzing the interviewer style and finding out where the holes are in their interviewing process. Now, that is what INFJ will naturally do, especially if they're the counselor type or the psychology type of person. And I was like, that's a great idea. You're filling a need in the market for these managers who don't have the skills at that level that got them the promotion, Yeah. So and they have a harder time seeing what they need to be successful in an entirely new position, and I've seen it time and time again. And to be fair, the same thing could be said about like an INFJ or an SF or an NF who maybe get promoted into a different type of position, and then had to really do a lot of accuracy work and a lot of bookkeeping, and then suddenly they're unsuccessful. It goes any way. It goes any which way. The Fs are going to be great at managing the team and the tribe, and the Ts are going to be great at managing the processes.
One of the other benefits for me for learning Meyers Briggs typology was that I remember. And Todd really helped me with this. Well, he helped me with all of this because I didn't really understand it. But was that I was so angry one day. I was just angry and frustrated and irritated. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? I'm just working. I'm just working. And he goes, I'm like, why am I so frustrated? And he was like, what have you been doing? And I said, I've been doing formatting. And he goes, that's because you've been in TI. And I'm like, what's TI? He goes, accuracy. You've been doing too much detailed, accurate work. And you got to get out of that, because that is not your resourceful state as an INFJ. And so when I learned that, I limited my accuracy time per day. You know, I'm like, okay, I can only work on this for an hour, because then I start losing my momentum and I stop feeling good about myself, and I want to jump out of a window. Or throw my computer out of a window. So that's kind of, one of the biggest benefits for me. But somebody who is a sensor thinker might be fine with accuracy stuff.
Yeah.
So we need it all. And that goes back to his point from the very beginning, which is we need all types.
We need diversity.
Mm-hmm. We need diversity. We need diversity for our survival. And you can't think of one as better than the other because of that. That understanding that, you need the wise man in the tribe, and you also need the farmer in the tribe. You also need the, we don't need a football team
of all quarterbacks.
Right.
You only need one. And then you need wide receivers and tight ends, linebacks, centers. You need it. And they all have specialty skills for that position. They're even the height and weight of a football player determines what positions they might be good for. So suffice it to say, personality type is going to weigh heavily into how you might help yourself self-assess to where you might thrive and where you might belong.
Yeah, that's a great. I love that football analogy. That helps me a lot, actually, because I'm like the kicker versus the quarterback versus the linebacker.
And ends are currently in the process of being more valued in the workplace, because the traditional work environment is realizing that we do need more people in this organization to help us form connections, not just to build this widget or manage this thing. We need to be able to. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, the left hand doesn't understand what the right hand's doing.
Yeah.
If you've ever worked in corporate jobs. And that's because, there's, in my assessment, there's probably a need for more N's. Like the NTs, for example, are the computer guys, the guys who solve problems, right? The NFs are people who thrive solving people problems and managing people, and the STs, as are the SFs, are also great with people. And then the STs should be running things. They should just be running and administrating things. So true. And that's their strengths. They can do other things, of course, but those are their strongest things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is a good talk. I'd like to talk more about, because I think there's a ton of things.
There's a ton. There's so much we could go into.
It's limitless. I mean, there are just full books just on INFJ, ISTJ, ENFP. Like, there's full programs out there. So look it up. If you go out to Personality Hacker.
PersonalityHacker.com has lots of great resources. They have an amazing podcast, and they have a free test for learning your personality type, and I do recommend it. It's a great test because it's a binary test. I don't recommend taking any kind of personality test where you have to self-select always, sometimes, or never for each question. That self-selection process really is a flawed type of a test, so I don't recommend those. You're going to get different results every time you take it. But tests like Personality Hacker or any kind of binary test where it's one option or the other for every question, and it's only a 10-minute test, is going to be a lot more accurate in terms of giving predictable results.
Yeah, and I think there's a slide bar on some of those questions.
Slide bars are also not a great idea. That's also a. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's a good idea?
No. Well, Personality Hacker used to have that, and that's okay. That's only for a couple questions at the end, but the majority of them are binary, and you'll get a better result that way.
Yeah. So check out your MBTI. Write in the comments. Tell us what your type is. We love all types.
We do love all types.
All types are good.
and this is a good point. This is a really good point to wrap it all up.
Yeah.
I have found exceptions to everything I thought was a rule or a constant when it comes to MBTI. I have got, I know we've talked a lot about ISTJ and INFJ for God knows what reason in this video, but they're fairly different, right? And I guess that's why we picked them. But I know ISTJs who you would never guess are ISTJs because they are so feeling oriented and loving and helping the tribe and things like that. And I've met INFJs who I never would have guessed were INFJs, and the same goes for every other personality type. We want to be right kind of thing and figure things out, but don't get too rigid. And I can say that from experience. And don't put people in a box, because your type is not who you are. It is one tool, and there are many tools for self-assessment that can help you to understand yourself better. Even astrology can be a help to give you some general guidelines as to how you might kind of work with energy and kind of thing. Enneagram can be helpful. The Graves model or spiral dynamics, also helpful. That's a vertical model. So, using different things, if you like to use systems like INFJs do, using different tools helps you to form a more overall or a more complete picture of how you are developing and what your strengths are. It's still not gonna conclusively state in forevermore who you are. That's not it. That is something that only the maker can speak to, or only God can speak to, I suppose. But remember, these are tools, and they're just a roadmap. It is not who you are. So no matter, this is just kind of a blanket statement, no matter what you're doing, nothing and nobody can tell you who you are. Only you can discover who you are. And then, so keep the tools and the resources in context.
Yeah.
Don't let it get out of hand. Don't become a finger pointer about what type you are, what type they are, and why you shouldn't even talk. Or something ridiculous like that.
It's finding out how we can join.
It's about joining, yeah. And I say these things important, not for you by any means, Kyra, but for anyone who's new and maybe looking for more identity and more validation, and having worked in the personal development and therapy fields for so many years.
Oh yeah.
It can be easy to confuse your identity when you're in the process of learning, and to maybe even want to cling to an identity when you're in the process of learning. Mm-hmm. But you are never just your type, and you are never just this thing or that thing. You are so much more than that. So never try to box yourself in. Use it as a guidepost, and use it as a point of how you can join with other people, but never as a point of separation.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's from my learning too, because I have had ego and identity issues about,
oh yeah,
about being different and I'm different. Yeah. No. Yeah, unique, individualized, sure, but then like any personality type or any person, the more we go, the farther we go, the more we develop, ideally, maturity about what we've learned and what we know, and how we can bring more value and benefit to anyone who wants to learn these things.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, well, I think that does it for us, and thank you for watching, especially all the way to the end here. If you're an intuitive feeler or if you're a sensor thinker, we love you. You are perfectly perfect.
Yeah.
You're doing it all right. Just keep going, keep on keeping on, and we'll see you again soon.